005, and it concerns relating to reckless driving, creating a violation for operating a vehicle at a speed of 100 miles per hour or more. Are there any questions? Are there objections? Seeing none, the bill is introduced. We'll open the hearing on House Bill 2491. Ask Revisor Wagner to brief us on it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, House Bill 2491 would designate a portion of U.S. Highway 73 as the Colonel Chuck Rambo Memorial Highway. Starting in Section 1, it provides that the Chuck Rambo Memorial Highway will begin on the portion of U.S. 73 from its junction with K92 in Leavenworth County and go north to the eastern junction with U.S. 59 in the city of Atchison. And highway signs designating the highway will not be placed until the Secretary of Transportation receives 150% of the cost of the sign for the initial cost and any maintenance. And then in Section 2, like has been done for quite a few highway naming bills, this was already named portion of highway for the Amelia Earhart Memorial Highway. Pretty long stretch. So it's a corresponding change to account for this new highway. And then the rest of the Amelia Earhart Highway has been left as is. I stand for any questions.
Other questions for the revisor? Hearing none, thank you. First proponent I have is Representative Pat Proctor. Welcome to the committee, as you're already here anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, fellow committee members. I'm not going to talk very long because, as you can see behind me, there's a whole bunch of folks who want to talk about Colonel Rambo. I'll just tell you, first of all, if you're concerned about the highway name being changed, the representative from Atchison is a co-sponsor on this bill and understands and completely agrees that this is there's no issue with renaming a section of this highway that currently commemorates Amelia Earhart. What I'd tell you about Chuck Rambo is what I knew while I served with him. I served with him for a couple years while I was at Fort Leavenworth from 2017 to 2019. He was a consummate professional. He's an Army aviator, a really inspirational guy, just inspired everybody around him. What I didn't know until he tragically passed last year in October was just how distinguished his military career had been. He served 1 tour in Iraq, 4 tours in Afghanistan. He won the Bronze Star 4 times. I don't know a lot of people with 3 oak leaf clusters on their Bronze Star. He's also a Legion of Merit winner, or earned the Legion of Merit and Meritorious Service Medals, 3 Air Medals. Just an incredible patriot. But the reason I brought this bill was because of these folks behind me came to me wanting to do this. And what's uncommon, what you don't see much, what I think really makes it worthwhile to commemorate Chuck's life is not just his service to his country, but his service in the community. You know, so many people, they just pass through a military post and they really never get to know the community around them. Chuck did. Chuck reached out. He was a coach of the Little League team. A lot of his, the kids whose lives he touched are in this room today. And this highway passes between Fort Leavenworth and Leavenworth, the first stretch of it. I think it's just so hugely impactful and so symbolic of how he bridged that gap between Fort Leavenworth and Leavenworth, if we could name this stretch of highway after him. With that, I'll stand for questions, Mr. Chair.
Are there any questions? You must have done a great job. Thank you very much.
It's stunned silence, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to recognize Karen Arnold, sister of Colonel Rambo. Welcome to the committee.
Chairman Prell and members of the committee, I am Karen Arnold, Chuck's sister. Henry Frederick Emile said, "It is not what he has or even what he does which expresses the worth of a man, but what he is." Chuck was not defined by accolades or titles, but by his dedication to his family, his country, and his faith. I know you will see by the testimonies given just what Chuck is and continues to be to so many. Chuck was a husband, a father, a son, a coach, a soldier, but to me, he was my little brother. Someone I looked up to, cherished dearly, and was so proud of. If you had the fortunate pleasure of meeting him, you couldn't help but love him. He was funny and loved to tell stories in a way that only he could. He lived a life of service in every sense of the word. He served his church as parish president and ministered to prisoners at Leavenworth Penitentiary. A dear friend of Chuck's, who's here today, Barbara, that would go to the prison with him, was telling us just how much the prisoners loved when he came. They loved his stories, especially the ones about his kids. Chuck led many men and women back to the Lord. She told me that they would be sad to hear of his passing. The pride I felt in that bittersweet moment, knowing that he was someone that prisoners would mourn. Wow. He served the community with his time coaching baseball and sharing the love of the game with the kids he mentored. It was his true passion. When we were kids, he would recruit me to help fill out the MLB All-Star ballots by hand to mail in, obviously before the internet. When we were kids, we would go to Braves games, and we'd have to get to the field super early so we could take our balls by the dugouts and hope to get as many autographs as we could. Those are the memories that I have of him that I will love and cherish forever. To say Chuck loved our country was an understatement. He served in the Army for almost 28 years and had a very distinguished career. He was less than a year from retirement. Leavenworth would be where he would plant his roots. It would be his time to be just Chuck, or Coach, as many called him. This would be his time to devote to Janelle and the kids. There is no doubt that he was a great father, a courageous leader, a welcoming friend, and a tremendous mentor. He was a great brother, and my mom's favorite. He had a profound impact on my life and my children as well. He loved and mentored them as his own. And our house came to life when we knew Chuck, just Chuck, and the crew would be coming to visit. If time allowed, I could share 1,000 more memories with you all, each one filled with more love and laughter than the last. It is with a heavy heart that we mourn Chuck's passing, and his loss was felt far and wide, similarly to the impact in his life. But it is in all the good and funny things that he did that we get to carry some of him with us every single day. I am grateful for every moment that I had with him. I thank you for your consideration in honoring him in this way. Chuck will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Arnold? Hearing none, thank you. Next, I have up Charlie Rambo and family. Welcome.
Chairman Pro and members of the committee. My name is Charlie Rambo, and on behalf of the entire Rambo team, my mom Janelle, my brothers Henry, Oliver, Elliot, and Sam, and my sister Faith, I would like to thank you for your time and opportunity to speak about my dad, Colonel Charles Rambo. I would also like to give a special thanks to Representatives Pat Proctor, John Epley, and Lance Neely for introducing this bill to the House. Being military, my family has moved multiple times from California to Virginia. In 2016, my dad made the decision to return the family to Fort Leavenworth. He loved the post, the history, and the location, smack dab in the middle of this great country, as he jokingly said. My dad loved this country as his 27 plus years of active duty service attests. But even more, my dad loved this place. Many times as my parents talked about my dad's upcoming retirement, I would hear him say to my mom, "Let's just stay here. I love it here." Something that I never fully grasped or realized was just how many people my dad had impacted. Everyone was my dad's best friend and called him whenever they needed a mentor, a leader, or a good laugh. At the funeral, people I didn't even know came up to me to tell me a story about my dad or to tell him that he was a great man. At that moment, I fully understood just how many people my dad had made an impact on, and I'm hoping that sometime in the future, all the people that have had an experience with my dad will see his name on the sign and be reminded of the times and memories that they had with him. Our family suffered a great loss of an even greater man, and we all miss him every minute of every day. What we wouldn't give to see his face again, hear his laugh, or get a giant hug. But if you approve House Bill 2491, we will get to see him every day on the road that first took us to the place we now call home. Thank you for your consideration of this impactful way to pay tribute to my dad. Thank you.
Are there any questions there's one question. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for Charlie for being here today. You did an excellent job. Were you nervous?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit? A little bit? You did far better than most folks.
Thank you.
Especially on their first time testifying. So welcome to the Capitol, and thank you for your dad's service to our country. It
Thank you.
really means a lot to me and my family and to the members of this committee in this state. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for your father and his service.
Yes, thank you.
Vice Chair Elperdang.
Got one more question here. Yeah, you're not going to get out of it this easy. I just have to ask, how old are you?
I am 16.
Your dad would be proud.
Thank you. Any more?
I think you're good now.
Thank you.
Committee, I have written testimony from Susan Wharton, Colonel, retired, Robert Barrow, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, and Jason McCarney. I also have letters of support received from numerous people, and all of the committee members have those recommendations, have those that testimony and letters. Does anyone else wish to speak on the bill? If so, just please get up and come to the mic and introduce yourself and welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Harrison. I'm from Lansing, Kansas. I've known the Rambos for many, many years, even before these beautiful children were born. I so wish you could have had the opportunity to meet Chuck, because he truly is an unforgettable person. At Leavenworth, he made and has left such a remarkable impression on so many people, because first of all, he was a great man of faith, and he volunteered to be the parish council president for our St. Ignatius Church. And because of that, he was the first face that so many of the soldiers who come through Fort Leavenworth see. When at our meetings and at church, he served in many capacities. His sense of humor and his warmth just made him so unforgettable to so many of the people who met him for the first time. His sense of humor, he always had a joke and a story, very often at the expense of his children and their shoes. Oh, he had a problem with all their shoes in the hallway that he finally solved as we laughed about it. He was a man of compassion. He felt so for other people, and that's what I think really inspired him to volunteer as at the USDB, that's the United States Disciplinary Barracks that Fort Leavenworth is unique to having. And every Sunday night, without fail, he would come in with a team of, there's about 8 of us, and he would talk with, joke with, and pray with those inmates. And so he became a role model for so many of those guys who had had unfortunate home happenings or whatever in life had brought them to that circumstance. So when he died, one of the most beautiful memorial masses I've ever seen was one that they conducted there at the prison in his honor, and the testimony that so many of them read about him. So he will never be forgotten for those men, for sure. Also, he had such a feeling for the vets. Every Christmas, our team would go out to the VA hospital, which is there in Leavenworth. And we would go from room to room and talk with the vets who were there, and we would sing and do Christmas carols. And they loved him because he was so welcoming and warm to all of them. In so many ways, he was quite an athlete himself. He loved all the sports that his children engaged in, but he loved it himself. He was an avid golfer. He and my late husband would take to the links quite often, much to Janelle's grin, because, it takes a while to play golf. But he loved it so, and I envision him very often up there in the clouds now playing golf with my Kent. But I could go on with many, many tales of what he has done to leave an indelible mark on our community. And I hope you honor him in this way for which he is most deserving. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Please come up and identify yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Baldrige. My son Leighton played for the Pioneers under Chuck, and I just don't really even know where to start. I mean, he was an amazing guy. He was, to be a part of the Rambo family was something. I mean, I'd like to call it Rambo Beach. Everybody he touched was a speck of sand on his beach. But when he talked to you, you was the most important piece of sand on his beach. And he touched those little boys' hearts like you have never seen before. He'd start out practice telling them he believed in each one of them 110%. And if he could get 100% out of each one of them, they'd always be winners. And when he told them that one day old coach ain't going to be here and you're going to have to do what you do, and the day that he passed away, those little boys, 13, 14-year-old boys, played the most remarkable baseball I've ever seen. And on the way home, I said to my son, I said, we got to do something for Coach. And he said, what? I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to do something big for him. So I started inquiring about a highway, and here we are today. Because my last conversation with Chuck was, he says, I'm going to retire next year. I said, well, what are you going to do? He leaned up against the batting cages and he says, well, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to be a husband. And then I'm going to be a father and I'm going to be a baseball coach. I said, well, what do you want? He looked at me and said, burn ends. You ever see my wife smile when she ate my burn ends? No, you didn't see it. She ate my burn ends because I'd given him a little bowl of burn ends. And he said, then I want a piece of Kansas real estate that says Chuck Rambo. Chuck, here we are, all of us, to be your personal realtors. We're trying to get you a piece of Kansas real estate that lasts a lifetime. By dedicating this highway to Chuck would mean a great deal to a lot of people.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Please come forward. State your name, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jalen Serrata. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here to talk about Coach. Intelligent, kind, outgoing, thoughtful, and caring. These are just some of the amazing qualities that describe Coach Chuck. Coach was a huge inspiration to me. When I first met him, I knew right away that he would be a great coach. Even though I was brand new, he made sure that I felt like I was a real part of the team. From the very first day of practice, I felt a bond between us right away. I am so appreciative of all that he taught me and extremely grateful for including me in his baseball family. He instilled the values of hard work and having a good attitude from the start. An example of this would be one of the favorite memories I have of him. It was when we were at our first tournament together. During one of the games, right before I came up to bat, he told me, time the pitcher up, square up, but most importantly, just have fun. His words allowed me to calm my nerves and just go out there and do my best. I now have the confidence I need to step up to the plate and ended up hitting a triple. He gave me one of the best memories I have from being out on the field, and he is someone I know that I will never forget for the rest of my life. I will continue to allow his encouraging words to inspire me for the upcoming season, and most importantly, for the rest of my life. I thank Coach Chuck and the entire Rambo family for accepting me when I was new and just needed experience. I am so grateful for the moments and memories I had with him. Coach's words will always be instilled in my head and heart. But being able to look up and see his name on the road as I travel to play at my games would be such a special reminder that he is always there with us.
Thank you very much. Representative Ballard?
He's back up. Now, we couldn't just let you sit down. That took a lot of courage. You took 3 deep breaths. And I bet your coach would be so proud of you.
Thank you.
Because of what you had to say about him, but more importantly, what he did for you.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming today to share it with us.
Thank you.
Don't run off. We have one more comment before you leave. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you for sharing. This will be quick. What position do you play?
Shortstop.
Shortstop? Awesome. Awesome. Well, your coach would be proud. You did a great job, buddy.
Thank you. Please tell us your name and tell us what you have to say.
Hi, I'm Braden Shoemaker, and to me, Coach Chuck was my all-time favorite coach. He took the time to teach all of us the fundamentals of baseball, and he showed us that he cared and respected all of us. And he would, every game, he would tell us to keep our head in the game if we would doze off or we weren't paying attention. Kind of told me that a lot, but it's okay. He didn't care if we won or lost as long as we played our best. And I'm really going to miss him because all he taught me and how he cared for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Hoheisel.
Do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What position do you play?
I'm third base.
Third base. Awesome. That's what I played growing up. So great job.
Representative Ballard.
I tried.
Well, I have to thank you too. And I'm sure the coach would be very proud. But you know what? I'm looking at his family and they're smiling as you're talking because you're talking not only about your coach, but about their dad, their husband, their friend, their brother, their sister. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Representative Ballard.
Could I ask Charlie come back up here, please?
You just thought you got away, didn't you?
Well, he was sitting there kind of like, I'm done. No, you're not. You know what I would like for you to do for us?
What?
Would you recognize the rest of your family sitting in those seats so that they are part of what you did today as well? Would you please?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have my brother Oliver, I have my sister Faith, my aunt KK, that's what I call her. My little brother Elliot. We have Miss Barb, lifelong friend. My mom, little monster Sam. And then lastly, we have my brother Henry.
Very nice. We thank you all so much and we applaud you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, I have no opponents listed, and I have no neutrals listed. Does anyone wish to speak as a neutral or an opponent? Seeing none, before we close the hearing, I have Vice Chair Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a question for not the family, and I want to make sure this doesn't come out as cold-hearted, but I'm trying to get some information. This bill was originally sponsored by Representative Proctor, Representative Neely, and Representative Epley, who's not present here that I know of. So the question goes out to any of you present here, but the cost on this, $45.90, have efforts been taken to make sure the monies are procured, or where do we stand?
Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. There is a fundraising effort, and there will be no issue raising the required funds to pay the 150%.
Good, I appreciate that, and that's where I was heading to it. It's one thing to pass it, it's another to make it happen, and I wanted to make sure it did. So, okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 2491 and open the hearing on House Bill 2503. Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, House Bill 2503 requires antique vehicle certificate of title applicants to be licensed vehicle dealers unless, if they are using a bill of sale to obtain the certificate of title. However, there is an exception if the applicant is not a licensed dealer. They can provide proof of insurance and simultaneously register the vehicle when providing the bill of sale. KSA 8-170 provides procedures for the registration of titling of antique vehicles. Statute provides that a person may apply for an antique vehicle title for any vehicle using a bill of sale as an ownership document, along with the application. Additionally, if the antique vehicle has a model year of 1950 or later, then the inspection, there must be an inspection by the Kansas Highway Patrol in accordance with KSA 8-116A. As I said, the bill would make that process using a bill of sale to obtain a title for licensed vehicle dealers only, as they are defined in KSA 8-2401. And again, as I said, there is an exception. If the person is not a vehicle dealer, they can provide proof of insurance and register the vehicle simultaneously. Additionally, the bill would allow county sheriffs in the county where the title is going to be obtained or the application will be submitted for the title. Those county sheriffs can perform VIN inspections on antique vehicles as they're required for model year 1950 or later. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Other questions for the reviser? Vice Chair Delperdang. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just my question kind of revolves around the model prior to 1950 as far as an antique vehicle. When we passed a law last year saying, well, it was basically lining up, but we considered antique vehicles anything 35 years and plus. So how do those conflict with each other?
They do not. It just, for anything before 1950, they aren't required to get inspections for certificate of titles. They're still an antique vehicle by definition. What we changed last year was making the definition of antique vehicle anything 35 years or older. So anything between 1950 and whatever that math is, anything after 1950, the only thing that matters is that they have to get an inspection along with their application.
One more question, if I may.
Sure.
When was the last time this 1950 date was updated?
I don't have that specific information, but
Because let's say this was written in, even 2000, 1950 then was only 50 years, now it's 70 years. So I don't know if we should look to maybe move that up a little bit, but that's for future consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
and if I may, Mr. Chair, there is a bill that I think we're hearing this week that does exactly that.
Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the rundown on the bill. So I got two questions. First, really what this adds is you can't just get the title for the vehicle, you have to get insurance and have to get it registered if you're not a licensed dealer.
Correct.
And then how does this change the process if you did get a title with the vehicle? So, because with an older vehicle right now, if I've got the title and a bill of sale, I don't have to do either of those things.
Yeah, that's correct. This is only when an applicant is using a bill of sale as the ownership document. If the title is the ownership document, then that process is remaining unchanged.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Vice Chair Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've started hitting onto this, but in your original write-up, it was talking about the inspection by the KHP. But you did later on mention the sheriffs could do it too, and it does lay it out on page 2, lines 5 through 7, where the county sheriffs can do it. In my memory, haven't we run bills through here before looking at having sheriffs being able to do these inspections? But there was concerns of this county may get done this way, and this one this way, this one this way. And by doing it at the state level, it's all held level, so to speak, across the board.
I'm not aware. There might have been bills to that nature, but I can't remember specifically if any of those bills got a hearing or anything. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm going to voice my concern if it's done on a county by county basis, then everybody could just run them through a given county that's maybe a little more lenient to it. So, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Echoing what my distinguished Sedgwick County representative just talking about. Just so I understand is that if this becomes law, then each county sheriff can do the work, correct? And is there going to be a section in the statute or rules and regs on this, the way they have to complete that work, or is it up to them, their office to do that?
Yeah, the bill doesn't contemplate specific like certifications. I believe there is a process laid out right now if someone wanted to do these checks to apply with the KHP for that. But yeah, this specifically this bill does not require those county sheriffs to get that certification.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Delperdang.
One more time, sorry about that. Again, page 2, but down on line 31, 32, it talks about if you are not a licensed dealer, you shall provide proof of insurance, but it says pursuant to 40-3104. What type of insurance, what's specified in that without me sitting here trying to look up that specific statute?
Oh, it's the minimum coverage requirements for any motor vehicle insurance policy.
So it's a regular motor vehicle policy. And am I going to have, I wonder what kind of problems I'm going to have walking in my insurance guy and saying, I got this basket case of a vehicle I may or may not get restored in the next 20 years, and I want you to provide insurance. Does it get into any details of what's required there, I guess?
Yes, there are certain requirements. I'll need to look into that a little further to get the details on that.
I appreciate it.
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for a second time. So one of the changes on here has to do with licensed vehicle dealers. What is the process and application fee for getting your dealer's license?
Again, I'll probably have to look at the exact details for getting a vehicle license, but there is an entire act that deals with licensure requirements and what all goes into getting one of those.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for the reviser? Hearing none, thank you. I'm sorry, we got one more. Representative Neely.
Okay, so I'm just trying to grasp something too, like my representative here. So if a sheriff, not that this would happen in my county because my sheriff's very efficient, but if he were to turn around and do the inspection and then say the efficiency of our gentleman back here in the corner found some irregularities or something that it's not proper for the highway, et cetera. How does that work? I mean, how do we keep that from occurring if we don't have some kind of general standards or something that way?
Well, sounds kind of a policy question to be decided by the committee, but there are still processes where if KHP were to stop a vehicle and maybe found some sort of discrepancy in inspection, then they still could be labeled some sort of contraband. Or I think there's still a procedure in place, but yes, there's nothing to check the initial check unless the vehicle were stopped on the highway later on.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to state that?
In answer to Representative Hoheisel's question, most vehicle dealer fees are $75, license fees.
Representative Proctor.
A follow-up for our distinguished research person. Don't you also have to get a bond in order to get the license of a substantial amount of money?
You do, and I would have to look up the amount. It is, I believe they were trying to increase it from 40,000 to 60,000.
Thank you.
I may be sure. I think that bill, it did go through last session and increase the bond you need from 30,000 to 50,000.
Any further questions at this point for the revisor? Seeing none, thank you, Chris. Proponent, I have Chad Ehrlich. Welcome to the committee. Hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You actually got it dead on. One of the few people that ever does. Chairman and members of the committee, thanks for allowing me to be here today to speak on this bill. I emailed you a lot. I think I got everybody on my notes and the reason that I'm here. I own a company called Nobody Else's Auto. I deal in classic and special interest cars and parts. That's what I do. So I deal with this on an extremely regular basis. If you went through a lot of my notes, and I know a lot of you are somewhat familiar with this, where if you've got a vehicle that's 35 years old or older in the bill of sale, you get a title with a VIN inspection. In reference to your question about the 1950 era, what happened prior to somewhere in the mid-50s, Kansas titled by engine number, not VIN number. And a lot of those VIN numbers were never in the system because they were titled on the engine number back then. And I did see the note about trying to move that up to 1960 as well. But that was part of the reason I believe is why 1950 had been put into a break point. I'm going to guess probably 30 years ago. This has been in place for a really long time. But because of that, and the system works, don't get me wrong, the system works great. Because a lot of these vehicles, their paperwork has been lost to time. These things have been passed down through the family. It was put out behind the shed for years. So the system works. There's no doubt about it. The issue with the system, and the reason I'm here today and the reason we have this bill, is because what this has created. This has created a ton of illegal dealers in the state of Kansas because they just get a VIN inspection, get a bill of sale, state sends them a title, they throw it on eBay, Craigslist, Nextech Classifieds, and send it down the road. There's no reporting, there's no rules, there's no regulation for any of it. So because of this system, like I said, the system works great, but it's led to thousands of unreported vehicle sales, thousands of vehicles sitting in quote unquote inventory, not tagged, not on the tax rolls, because they just got a title only and they're just going to flip it and send it down the road. So that's the reason that we're here, and that's what I deal with on a daily basis. So if you look through the notes that I had put together, that's why we've proposed these changes. If there is an individual who's going to restore a car, they buy this old car, they want to fix it up, they need to get a title, then they shouldn't have any issue going ahead and registering it just like you do on any other vehicle. If you go buy a used car down the street, you take your title in, they're not going to give you title only. You walk in with insurance and tag and register your vehicle. However, with this bill of sale thing, you don't have to. That's why they keep flipping them illegally, throw them on eBay, send them down the road. So by putting this into place, that would allow the system to still work, but make it much more trackable, so to speak, and make it much more fair to people like me who are licensed dealers. I am bonded, I am insured, I have to do all of that. I spend a lot of money every year to do that and to be legal. And the rest of these guys don't do it. I know where there's hundreds of cars. I know individuals with literally hundreds of vehicles in stock, no dealer's license, no bonds, no insurance, no nothing. They have stuff all over eBay, they have stuff all over Craigslist, all over Facebook. And that's the issue that I deal with, and that's why I'm here today. The other part of this bill with the VIN inspection situation with KHP, they send a trooper from Wichita to Great Bend to do my VIN inspections when I can get them done. I've had about a half dozen done in the last couple of years because of trying to coordinate and schedule somebody to get there to do it. And I can't speak for all counties, but Barton County, where I live, our undersheriff is retired KHP. But he's not allowed to do it because his badge now says Barton County SO, not KHP. There are obviously, like you guys just discussed, a set of standards that would need to be put into place. And the other thing is they don't have to grant the VIN inspection if they go out and see it. If they see something that looks wonky, if you see a VIN tag that's been put on with wood screws, yes, you need to call these guys. You need to have a conversation about that. So the reason that I would like to see that pass is simplicity, especially for somebody like me who's a licensed dealer. If I get a VIN inspection and there's a question about it, my name's on it. It says Nobody Else's Auto. You call dealer licensing, they call OSI, who sends, Terry Tolson is the lady that I work with. She knows where to find me. She comes out and asks me what happened. It's all traceable that way. So, there definitely is a balance there that needs to be found as to what's the best way to handle it. But that's why that suggestion is in there to hopefully simplify some of that. Just like for me, when they sent a trooper out from Wichita, he drove from Wichita to Great Bend, did a half a dozen VIN inspections at $20 a piece, and drove back to Wichita and killed a whole day. So that's the other part of that. And those are the two reasons, or the reasons those two things are in there. Now, the thing about it, a lot of people don't understand is they ask, is this really happening? And we were supposed to hear this last week, but I had some of this last week, and this packet has grown, and you don't have this packet. I've got an extra packet I can leave with you. When you go to the Facebook page, Wichita Area Vintage Parts for Sale, in the last 12 months, this individual's had 13 cars on there for sale. This one's had 44 cars on that one Facebook page for sale. This one's had 14 advertised, 23 with this guy. Oh, and this guy here, if you need a title on one of his vehicles, he'll get you one for $300. Has that right in his ad? I will get you a title for an additional $300 on top of the price. Are these vehicles worth more with a title? Yeah, because then somebody can fix them up and get them on the road. That's why there's a process in place to get a title. But all these guys, none of these guys are legal. They're just rolling them and flipping them, rolling them and flipping them, rolling them and flipping them. They're obviously getting VIN inspections done because a lot of these vehicles are newer than 1950. So it's still happening. It's still getting done. This individual's had 6 on that one, on another Facebook page, Field and Barn Finds, classic cars and trucks for sale. This individual's had 6 on there. This one's had 5 on there in the last 2 months. This individual on the Street Machinery and Sales and Service Sunday Swap-A-Rama page, he'll get you a title on your Kansas vehicle for $200, is what he's selling them for on top of when you buy the vehicle. This Facebook page, The Adventures of Dead Wrench and His Disciples of Automotive Death, their description on their Facebook page, old school salvage parts, motors, bodies, chassis, rollers, projects, and drivers. Hot rods and gassers we ship worldwide. That's what his Facebook page says. I had Terry run that through dealer licensing, doesn't exist. This Facebook page, Abernathy Classics out of Hutchinson, their Facebook page advertises them as a classic car dealer, no dealer license. On eBay, this individual sold 6 vehicles in the last 60 days on eBay. And I know where this one's at, and he's got 50 to 60 vehicles in stock right now. I could drive you right to him. This individual on eBay, if you go to his eBay page, 23 vehicles for sale right now, no dealer's license. And this individual, actually our Barton County Treasurer went out and visited him because he was in every month getting titles in the Treasurer's office, every month getting titles. So I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to go out and physically inspect it myself. Our treasurer went out and said, this guy's entire yard is full of cars, dozens and dozens and dozens of cars, all for sale, no dealer license, stacks of titles. Some of this stuff, this one's 13 grand, this one's 4 grand, 4 grand, and no dealer's license on any of this stuff. This is another one off of Next Tech Classified. This guy's got 5 or 6 vehicles advertised as well. And it's all antique, classic, special interest stuff, most of it being titled by bill of sale. Obviously, in my business, when I'm trying to play by the rules, I'm trying to, and to answer the question about dealer licensing that just came up, the bonds did just go up. They did go to 50,000 this year. I actually get to buy 2 of them. I am dual licensed in the state of Kansas. I actually have to pay for 2 dealer's licenses. Why? I sell parts and I sell cars. I've got to have both. Most of these guys, you can go to their eBay sites and find hundreds of parts for sale and find dozens of cars for sale on their Facebook pages, their eBay sites. They have none of it. I pay for 2 bonds, 2 licenses, an insurance policy big enough to cover both of them, and this is what I compete against. I go to a farm auction to try to buy old cars for inventory, and I'm standing there bidding against 6 guys, and I know every one of them is not legal. And it's all going to end up right in the same markets where I'm trying to sell stuff. And they're going to buy them, they stand there and bid against me, and then it goes right to the same places I'm going to put it, but there's no control over any of it. OSI is very well aware of all this stuff that's happening. The problem is, They're only supposed to have 5 agents, and they're actually down to 4 right now for 105 counties. Not only is this part of what they're supposed to investigate, but they also have to do with all the regular dealerships, all the used car lots, all the regular car dealers. And, and they get into a lot of sometimes where obviously some of these dealerships can't pay their floor plan, they can't get titles for customers, odometer issues, they're chasing all that stuff as well. They know all this is going on. They're very well aware of it. I've had multiple conversations with them. They said, we can't get to it. There's just no way to get to it. There's just too much to do for 4 people covering 105 counties to try to handle all of this stuff. So I hope I've been as clear as possible. I welcome all questions. And anything you guys are curious about. So,
Are there questions? Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming to the committee today. And I appreciate and share your frustration with the fact that like the people that follow the regulations, follow the rules, are competing with people that are finding the loopholes. And I acknowledge that the problem you have here is a problem. But what I'm concerned about is that in solving the problem, there are some unintended consequences. And I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
absolutely, that's why I wanted to be here in person.
So let's hypothetically say that somebody's got a building and they've got a 1949 car in it that's in 4 different piles. And the person who sold them the building gives them a bill of sale for that vehicle. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to understand what it is you're trying to do here. If the owner of that building don't have a dealer's license, I would have to get that car that's in 4 piles insured in order to get a title, and I would have to register it and put a plate on it.
Correct.
And so right now, the law is I could just go with that bill of sale to the county and get the title,
And they will spit a title out and send it right back to you.
and send it back to me. And so for that 4 or 5 years while it's sitting in my building and I'm procrastinating about fixing it and getting it on the road, I would be paying vehicle insurance and a registration on a car that's sitting in 4 piles in my garage.
That's the way the bill's written, correct. Now, however, with that, what a lot of people do that is very affordable is collector car insurance. Haggerty, things like that. Collector car insurance is very reasonable, and a lot of them will do it on an agreed upon value. So you can go get liability insurance on a vehicle. They say, what's it worth? It's worth $3,000. Well, this should be, it's in 1 million pieces. It's right now I'm restoring it. They can get a very reasonably priced insurance policy to get liability on it to go get a tag.
Okay. But we acknowledge I am going to have to buy the insurance on that.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And the reason being is because of all these illegal dealers.
Right. And so my follow-up question is, exact same situation, except it's a 1953 car, and I actually got the title when I got the bill of sale. I could take that, correct me if I'm wrong, I could take that to the county and they would change the title to my name and I wouldn't have to register it and I wouldn't have to.
If you have the title,
Yeah.
the way I understand it, if you take the title up to register a vehicle, and this is something that I'm not 100% sure about, if they will issue a title only. I think they will do that if it's non-highway. But they brand it non-highway if you are not going to tag it at that point, if I remember correctly.
So we can get the revisor in on this, but I just lived it a few days ago. You can get a title only because it's sitting in 4 piles in your garage. And then when you do get it roadworthy, you have to go get insurance, and then you get a registration for the 1953 vehicle if you had the title.
Did they brand it non-highway? Because that's what they've done in the past.
They did not. It's a title only until you are ready to register it and put it on the road, and then you have to have proof of insurance. And so the reason I bring this up, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your indulgence, is I don't know the difference between those 2 vehicles. I want to solve the problem that you've got without creating another problem, and because it's nonsensical. And then my constituent calls me and says, Representative Proctor, why am I having to pay insurance every year on this vehicle? Come to my house and see this vehicle and explain to me why I've got to pay insurance every year on it. And so what I would like to do, Mr. Chair, is find a way to solve your problem by reducing the regulations on you so you can compete better with those guys. But thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Further questions for the Representative Howe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I surveyed some of my constituents prior to the hearing just to get some feedback, people that are involved in antique car collecting and things like that. So I had two comments back. One basically said I would not change from the current system. A lot of these cars are never driven. Then the second comment said, it's an excellent bill. And it says one of the best parts is you can have a sheriff inspect your car, because presently, right now, he has to go to a parking lot, a designated parking lot from 10 to 4, where a highway patrolman is waiting for people to come for their inspections. So he does like the flexibility of the county sheriff doing those VIN inspections. So those are some of the comments that I received back, and I didn't know if you had any response to any of that.
Well, and that is part of the reason of the sheriff's department doing it is simplicity of it. Obviously, working with these guys here to come up with a set of standards to make sure everybody's on the same page. Like I said, they don't have to grant the VIN inspection. If something looks weird, they can take pictures of it. And that's one nice thing about Google. If you need to know what the VIN tag on a 57 Plymouth looks like, you can Google it and get multiple examples. And if the car you're looking at doesn't match the 10 examples you found, they don't have to grant it. They say, wait a minute, hold up. We got to do a little more digging. We're going to call these guys. We're going to see if they've got any research on it. We'll get back with you. It's not just an automatic granted deal. If it's been put on with wood screws or something, then obviously there's an issue. So, that's part of the reason of that, is to make it simpler. But also there again, like I said, you've got to have a set of standards to go by. The other thing is, just like with me, with a trooper coming out from Wichita, the local county sheriff's office is going to have a better finger on the people they know that might be a little questionable too, that might be doing stuff that they're not sure about when they go out to see somebody. Did that cover everything you had?
Yeah, thank you.
Vice Chair Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here too. So I'm just trying to get my hands around this if we make some changes here. But first question, how many salvage yards are there in Barton County?
There are 2 legal licensed automotive salvage yards. And then there are a couple of scrap metal facilities that would also have a salvage license.
So it'd be you plus one other?
Yes.
Okay.
I do primarily collector, classic, special interest stuff. The other one does, stuff that's 20 years old and newer.
Okay. And then same question for going across the state, because if we make a change here, we're affecting the entire state. So how many of these shops or yards are there across the state?
As far as illegal, I have no idea. I don't know how many licensed salvage yards there are in the state, but illegal dealers, every time you get on Facebook, eBay, and start looking local in Kansas, they start popping up. Okay. And like I said, some of these guys, I know a few of them, a lot of them I don't. One of the guys in here, I know he's got 400 cars in stock. Okay. No dealer's license, no salvage license, and a lot of these guys are like this. You go to their YouTube channels, they've got videos walking through their yards, hundreds of cars in stock. They're getting VIN inspections done. They're getting titles processed. These guys are out there running around, or sending those guys out there to take care of these illegal dealers. Our county treasurer's office are wasting their time and their manpower processing titles for these illegal dealers. And then they go right back on eBay, and down the road they go.
Okay. And then can I ask how many vehicles you've got?
I have about 1,500 in stock.
1,500, because you mentioned that, such got 30, 14, 40, et cetera.
Yep.
So
I've got 20 acres with about 1,500 cars on it.
Yeah, because I noticed you even had a write-up in Hot Rod Magazine a while back here too.
Yeah, I've done some work with those guys. I do a ton of digital media because realistically, that's where it's at. I do a lot. I've got over 25,000 people on my Facebook page. I've got almost 9,000 subscribers on YouTube because that's primarily where I market. However, on the other hand, to do what I do effectively, I can't market to that scope or call these guys and have them come out to do a VIN inspection, and they pull up and there's 1,500 cars. What are you doing here? Oh, nothing. So I want to make sure my ducks are in a row, because if these guys or anybody else shows up, I have to have this. That's why I just wrote a check for 2 $50,000 bonds. That's why I just wrote a check for insurance. That's why I just wrote a check for my dealer's licenses. Because it's a lot easier to try to do it right to begin with than to have to answer questions later. And then I keep running into this problem. It's difficult to get the VIN inspections done. I'm dealing with all these illegal dealers. It's just stacking up on me trying to play by the rules, so to speak.
Okay, and I'm trying to figure out too, is there a statewide association of individuals that deal in these vehicles?
There's a Kansas auto dealer, auto dealer salvage association. I'm not part of that. And I'm kind of a weird segment of that because I am a fully licensed operating salvage yard and used vehicle dealer, but it's all strictly collector car stuff. So it's different than any late model production type yards, which is what most of them are across the state.
Okay. Personally, I'm concerned because I don't see people here from other counties. So is this a Barton County issue? And if
None of, there's only a few of these that are Barton County.
State, and that's what I'm.
Yeah, this is statewide.
Okay.
The issue is statewide because anybody in Kansas just gets a title on a bill of sale and throws the car on eBay.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've just been reading the testimony in here and about the problem. You know, if we decide to work this bill, I would sure like to hear from OSI, the dealer licensing, to find out why they're not. Seems like it's their job to make sure these people have licenses, and also from the car dealers. You know, it just seems like we have people that have a vested interest in this that aren't here to testify today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Francis was going in a similar direction. I think if you have someone who's legitimate, being licensed, paying insurance fees and doing everything else, and someone else is out doing it not, who is enforcing this? You know, and it seems like you're trying to do what you're supposed to be doing. So is the guy or woman who's trying to be legal and stay within the law, and other people are not abiding by the law? That doesn't make sense. But if they're allowed to get away with it, people will do just that, get away with it if there are no consequences. So my question is, what are the consequences for people that are not playing by the rules?
I've talked to OSI, well, at least my agent or investigator that I deal with, and they are aware of the problem. They can go find them. They can shut them down. The problem is, if they've got somebody who bought a car from a used car dealer who's not paying their floor plan and their financer won't release the title, they've got to drop everything and go try to get this individual's title. That stuff is just continually taking precedence. If somebody goes to register a vehicle that they just bought with 80,000 miles on it, and they go to buy the title and they punch it in the system and it had 170,000 on it 6 months ago, obviously somebody's going to be a little concerned. They get drug into so much of that stuff that obviously if somebody just spent $20,000 on a car and they can't get a title because they didn't pay the floor plan and the financer won't release the title, that's what they're chasing. It's just one of those deals. This is always just continues to get pushed to the side because there's not enough agents to cover it.
And because we had something similar that came, are all of your cars like drivable, or do you have some that are salvage?
Most of mine are salvage. Some of them can be restored. I've got some cars that do run. I've got a mixture. That's why I'm dual licensed, salvage and used vehicle.
So the problem we heard was if you don't have the title, what really happens in many ways. So it's sort of like it's come around full circle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me. One more question. I'm trying to understand a legislative solution to the problem. You keep saying illegal dealers, and I understand they're not licensed dealers, but they're basically doing what a dealer does. What actual, have they found a loophole and they're skirting the law that requires them to be licensed, or are they actually violating a law? What law are they violating?
If they sell over 4 vehicles a year, you are in the way the state of Kansas law reads, you should be a licensed dealer. The problem is these guys are spread thin. They go out and do VIN inspections, move on to the next guy. So they do that enough, and some of that falls through their county treasurer's offices. The county treasurer's offices should really be catching them. And that's where the Barton County Treasurer's office started. When I mentioned it to him, he's like, there are some guys I see here like every month. But there again, you've got a staff of anywhere from 5 to 20 or 30, clerks in an office. Some guy comes in, hands a file, they process it and send them down the road, So there are systems in place to handle it, the systems that make it work. However, it's just difficult, just like KHP. If they get a different officer every other time to where this one person has seen 6 different officers over a year's time, but did 3 or 4 vehicles every time, well, he's got 20 or 30 vehicles he did. So he's in complete violation of not being a licensed dealer because they've sold well over 4 cars. But there's just too many variables between KHP, County Treasurer's Office, that they're getting away with it.
Okay, so it sounds to me like what we're doing is we're creating a law to make it even more illegal to do what they're already doing.
Well, it would slow it down because they would have to register the vehicles. Right now, they have the event inspection fee and the title fee, and no tracking, no accountability. I have to do a sales report every month. So there again, if there's a question about any title that I ever did, it goes to OSI, Terry calls me, what happened? She can show up at my place. I have to pull the paperwork out and hand it to her to show her what happened, if there were ever a question.
So, sorry, I promise this is the last one, Mr. Chairman. What is the registration fee for an antique vehicle if they had to register it?
I don't know because I don't register them, Mike, because I've got a dealer's license.
Yeah, it's teeny tiny.
And that's the thing. It's not that much.
Yeah.
This would add, if John Smith was going to go register, get a tag for his old car, you're talking a couple of $100. It's not a huge deal unless you're doing dozens of them a year. Yeah. If you're doing 1 car you're working on or maybe 2 that you're working on, it's not a huge expense unless you're doing multiples of them.
And I just tell you, because I just did it, that the registration fee is not
I know,
a couple $100.
And that's why, we pursued it this way, because we're not talking about a huge issue or a huge expense to your general hobbyist. Unless you're doing dozens of them a year, then yes, it starts adding up and it becomes more of a hassle.
Okay, thank you.
It's just like anything else. You've got a system that works. What happens when you've got a system that works and works well? It gets abused. And that's what's happened. The system is in place. It's worked great. There is absolutely a need for it. When you've got loopholes, these guys take advantage of it and abuse the system, and that's where we're at today.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you very much.
Is that it?
That's it.
Well, I appreciate everybody giving me the time today and hearing me out. And if there's ever any questions in the future, don't ever hesitate to reach out. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak as a proponent?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question for the gentleman.
I'm sorry.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question my hand was up. Could you come back to the podium for a second?
He's back.
I'm here.
Sorry about that. My question is to, you talk about dealerships and also people who actually abuse it. My question is, say for instance, if there is a mechanic who just basically is trying to do something on the side that probably fixes like 1 or 2 cars per se every month. My question is there a limit as to how many cars, in your opinion, one can do in order to qualify to be a dealership? I'm trying to understand when you say that there are people who abuse the system, but if there's somebody, what's the number per se that we're talking about? If you need to be a dealer, if you want to be selling like antique cars.
The way from what OSI has told me, once you sell 4 cars in 12 months, you qualify as a dealer in the state of Kansas.
4 cars in total for the year.
Correct. That's once you hit your 4th vehicle. From what OSI has told me, they consider you a dealer at that point. If you're moving a car every quarter, that's more than a normal person should be doing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
Okay. Did I miss anyone else online? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I had nobody else listed. Does anyone else wish to speak as a proponent? Seeing none, I have 1 opponent listed, Captain Craig Phillips, Kansas Highway Patrol. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm Captain Craig Phillips with the Highway Patrol. I am the troop commander for Troop V, which oversees our VIN inspection program. And in reference to this, first I want to say I appreciate the passion that Mr. Ehrlich has shown today. we appreciate always when somebody is out there trying to do the right thing. So I'd like to say that first off. But in regards to this particular bill, our interest is with the VIN inspection portion of it. And I wanted to maybe enlighten some of you that if you're not aware, that currently we do VIN inspections in conjunction with our designee partners. And if you're not familiar with what our designees are, they are county sheriffs and police departments throughout the state that can be part of our VIN inspection program and conduct VIN inspections themselves. Currently, we've got, I believe it's 80 county sheriffs as part of our designee program, including the Barton County Sheriff. And so roughly 76% of the state's sheriff's departments. And we have, I believe it's 65 police departments across the state. And so what those designees are allowed to do is anything from a certificate of title inspection, a title correction, and an antique inspection with the bill of sale. Now, what we found is when we do the training for these agencies, a lot of them wish to not participate in doing the bill of sale inspections because antique inspections can be convoluted at times. They take more scrutiny, a scrutinizing eye, and the training that we have, that we pass on to them, is easily lost when you don't do it over and over and over like patrol members do. And it's very simple to be part of that program. All it takes is an application approval by the superintendent, and then we go out and train that agency. Now, the important part of this is that all these designees are using Kansas Highway Patrol VIN inspection forms. So those forms, when done as from a member of the VIN inspection program, they're accountable, the form is authentic, and they're trackable. And we house all those inspections that are done via designees in Wichita, and we have the ability to track them for future reference if we need to. So it's in our interest that any VIN inspections stay within the purview of the Highway Patrol. And if any sheriff's department out there has interest in becoming part of that designee program, any of them are more than welcome to. And I'd like to stand for questions if there are any.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as a previous conferee stated that you're supposed to have a dealer's license if you get more than 4 bill of sales done in a year, why can't you enforce that and basically say, we've been to this guy 9 times this year? What precludes you from being the enforcement mechanism on this?
Well, if it's in state statute, obviously it's enforceable by the patrol. I haven't heard of any of these our people going out and seeing individuals where they think that they're skirting that more than 4, selling more than 4 cars. However, I did talk to some partners from the Department of Revenue about this before I came here today, and was just curious because I know Barton County is the county in question here. And my question was, Barton County is a small enough community where you would see individuals or repeat offenders coming in to the treasurer's office, and why those treasurers don't turn around and report it to the Department of Revenue's fraud division. And I was informed that that has been the case in the past.
And not trying to pass the buck here or anything. You guys are the law enforcement officers, and that poor county treasurer that's sitting behind that desk, it would just seem like if you guys have to go to the location actually, don't you, and do the VIN? You go to where the vehicle is to do the VIN inspection?
That's correct, yes.
And you can walk into the location and say, wow, there's 1,000 cars here. Where's your dealer's license? I mean, that would seem a normal part of the process to me. Am I missing something though?
No, you're correct.
Okay, all right. Could you look into it a little bit more and see if you think there's any statutory restrictions on you not doing VIN inspections if they're exceeding this allegedly 4 VIN inspection limit to not be a dealer?
So denying their inspection if they're bringing it to us as a non-dealer?
Yes, because to be a dealer, or to get more than 4, the previous conferee said that if you do more than 4 a year, you're supposed to be a dealer. I don't know if that's true. We're really out of my league. Would you dispute that fact that if you do more than 4 in a year, you're supposed to be a dealer?
No, I believe that is if you do five sales without a dealer's license in a calendar year, you qualify as a dealer, 5 or more.
Right, and could you look into it and see why you don't enforce that as you're doing the VIN inspections? What the rationale is?
Well, yes, absolutely, yes, I can. But I can tell you what we have done in the past is the Department of Revenue has investigators just specifically for this kind of, instance. And if we see something like that, we pass it along to their dealer licensing.
Just one more comment. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but sometimes I believe we have plenty of laws out there. We just don't enforce the laws that we already have, and this individual's trying to comply with the law. And I sometimes think that's part of the problem. Thank you.
Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. I hate to say this. I used to work for Department of Revenue. Well, not really. But is the OSI, is that the Office of Special Investigations and Revenue? Is that what you're talking about?
I deal with OSI assigned to dealer license.
Okay.
It is OSI. I call her my dealer rep is what I call her, but she actually is assigned to works for OSI, assigned to dealer license.
I've worked with some of those people years and years ago. Some things that at least when I was there, cleared up was that a person could sell 4 cars within a calendar year. If it goes over 5, then they have to become a licensed dealer. At least that's what it was when I was there. I think you already answered that. You have a form that's that's standardized form for going out and doing the checklist on a VIN inspection, correct?
Yes.
And those are routinely used by your affiliates in the sheriff's department, correct?
That's correct.
They use the same form as KHB does.
They use our designee form.
And is there only 4 troopers that are assigned for VIN inspections across the state?
No, that's any trooper can do a VIN inspection across the state. But in our particular unit, we have 10, just assigned specifically to our unit.
Okay. You have an auto theft unit, correct?
That would constitute those 10 individuals.
Okay, all right. And the last thing, you've pretty much answered it. On vehicles that you go out, and I don't know, I'm trying to remember, I'm going to date myself when I got my first car, which was in the 50s. Not when it was a 50s car. Are there more than one VIN plates besides one up on by the dash or right on the firewall? Aren't there some other not well-known VIN plates scattered on the vehicles? I know they are on later, but do you know when they went from just having that one to putting several other VIN plates in there so that they could check multiple places?
Well, every manufacturer is different. But yes, there are what we refer to as confidential numbers located in various locations on vehicles. I don't know specifically what year they started putting multiple numbers outside of an engine number.
I think that's all I have. So thank you.
Representative Proctor.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last week, I think it feels like a million years ago, we heard a testimony on a bill about the challenges with vehicles that need to be disposed of, crushed, whatever, having to get titled and having all kinds of paperwork. So, and this kind of goes to one of the previous representatives' question about enforcement. You also have to do VIN inspections on vehicles that are just being destroyed, not sold or titled. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. So Okay, I apologize then, because my understanding was that if a salvage yard, the bill, like I said, feels like 1,000 years ago, but as a tow lot tows a vehicle, they have to get it titled or something like that before they can have it destroyed. Is that true or not true?
They have to have documentation that shows that they came by that vehicle legitimately.
Okay, but they don't have to have it titled before they dispose of
They
it?
have to have the title. I don't know that it necessarily has to be in their name. I might refer to.
Yeah, that's, I'm
Please
probably
come
trying
to
to talk
please
about
come to the mic.
Yeah, I'm probably trying to talk, but if I remember correctly, and please, anybody else in the room, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, the bill that we heard was about the difficulties with tow lots. They tow vehicles off of public roadways and they end up sitting there forever while they're trying to get them the title paperwork just so that they can be deleted as a VIN once they're destroyed.
Okay, so you're referring to possessory liens. I thought you were referring to salvage.
I was probably saying it wrong, almost certainly.
Okay, so a possessory lien is in lieu of a title. So for these, you're talking about tow companies.
Yeah.
And if they want to claim that vehicle as theirs, they have to file a possessory lien. And yes, they do come to the highway patrol for an inspection.
Yep, and so that, the reason I bring that up is it goes to that point of why it's really impossible to enforce this for vehicle, because you would have all kinds of organizations that don't have dealer license that would come to you for more than 4 VIN inspections a year. Is that correct?
That could be correct, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Wagner, would you like to give us some clarification also?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where the certificates of title came in, that was House Bill 2294, and the bill would have required a certificate of title as opposed to the possessory lien process that's in current law. So that bill would have created a requirement to get a title.
But currently, that requirement sat on whoever took that vehicle in order to crush it, and they were trying to put it onto the tow. But one of them has got to get a title for it so they can crush the darn vehicle and get rid of it. That was my point.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One part of my answer, question, it was answered, the amount of people you have working it. I'm still trying to understand why you are testifying in opposed. Is it because you don't feel it's your responsibility and it's somebody in the county that should be doing this job? Or tell me exactly why you're opposed, because I'm still trying to figure out why you are.
No, we're not passing the buck. I don't want that to be misconstrued. What we're concerned about is allowing any agency to perform a VIN inspection that is not part of our VIN inspection program. The Highway Patrol is charged by statute to oversee the VIN inspection program for the state of Kansas. And while doing that, we allow sheriff's departments and police departments to be part of that program to conduct VIN inspections. The language in this bill specifically says that any sheriff within that county where that application for title is made can conduct the VIN inspection. We have no issue with that if they're part of the VIN program itself.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then I would have to ask then the maker of this bill, was that your intent, that anyone can do it going outside of the assigned patrol that has that responsibility?
You said that Barton is part of that program?
We need you to come to the mic to speak, please.
And that's something I'm not sure about, because Barton can do out of state and they do corrections, but they've gotten their hands slapped on doing antiques for me before. It's been several years ago, but they did get shut down doing some antiques for me. So there was apparently some miscommunication there at some point. But I mean, and I understand your point exactly, as making sure that they do follow your procedures. I mean, that's a necessity no matter how you do it. If not, you do have chaos and anything getting done, so.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much for explaining that, because I really wasn't sure. But I think, even though we're not working the bill, the officer has a claim that if there is a unit assigned and it includes people in various areas and they're part of that makeup, to go outside of that creates a problem for them because it's their responsibility. Can you respond?
Absolutely, and that's why, just like you said with your program to certify certain offices to work with you, makes perfect sense.
I thank you, and certainly I thank you for your response. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is actually directed at research. There's been a lot of talk about selling more than 4 vehicles in a year classifies you as a vehicle dealer. Is that in statute anywhere? Because I can't find it.
I was actually trying to find that in statute myself. I know that is a requirement. I saw that on their website, that 5 or more makes you a dealer. But I'll try and find if that's actually in statute, or if maybe it's in rule and regs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that sounds like it may be a rule and reg thing, because I've got a few different statutes up here, and I can't find it anywhere. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair, go ahead, Reviser.
I did want to kind of bring up a statute, just because we're kind of circling around it. But 8-2434 makes selling motor vehicles without a license a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine not to exceed $2,500. There's a little caveat sentence at the end that says the isolated or occasional sale of a vehicle by a person who owns such vehicle shall not constitute the doing of business as a vehicle dealer. So I just wanted to bring that to committee's attention.
Thank you. Further questions for Captain Phillips? Vice Chair Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate you guys being here. So you mentioned earlier in your testimony that you've got 80 sheriffs approximately and 65 on the PD that are partnered with you on doing this, but they all use the KHP inspection forms, right?
That's correct.
And that form is trackable within the state or out of state? Is it something a nationwide database could get into for tracking vehicles, or?
It's only trackable within our department. Essentially, it's a carbon copy form. Once the inspection is completed, there's a portion of it that comes back to us, and we enter into a database the information on it so that we can track it for further usage if we ever need to.
Okay, so if I've got a sheriff department in Johnson County that does one and another one out in Barton, for example, that there is a central database then to get, or is it strictly on a form that's sitting in a file cabinet, or?
It used to be in a form in a file cabinet. We have recently had a system developed where our individual who's in Wichita, she takes those forms that come back and enters the data into a system.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Representative Cywert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank both of you for being here. It takes something that should be so easy to make it so difficult. I don't understand it sometimes. Let me ask you a question in my scenario. I bought a truck, 42 Chevy truck from my dad's farm sale 50 years ago. It's been sitting in the shed. I have no idea where the title is. Both case scenario, if I asked you, what do I need to do to get the title to sell it to my daughter or make sure she's got legal ownership of it, what would I need to do?
You can sell that on a bill of sale.
Just write a bill of sale for it? If I could find a title, which I think I should, you got to remember 50 years ago, what would I do with the title then? Just give her the title?
If you have a title and it's in your name?
Well, I don't know if they put it in a sale bill or not. I don't remember. It's 50 years ago.
If it was in your name, then all you'd have to do is sign it over to whoever it is you're selling to.
Because he had the title from the 40s, so I don't even know what the title would look like in the 40s. So.
Sure.
Okay, in his case now, if I sold it to him, what would I have to do?
If you had a title?
If I didn't have the title, let's say I don't think I can find a title.
You can still sell it on a bill of sale.
Still, just sign on a bill of sale. Now, would I have to have it inspected?
No, that one falls, that's a 1949 or older.
42.
Right, so it would not require an inspection.
Okay. So what if it was a 62?
in that instance, yes, it would have to see the highway patrol.
Okay, 'cause I got one of those too. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any questions online? Seeing none. Captain, thank you very much. I show no other opponents or neutral. Does anyone wish to speak as an opponent or neutral? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 2503. Committee, we've got 4 bills that we were going to work final action on. We'll put those off until tomorrow, so look for a busy day. I would recognize Representative Helgerson for a bill introduction. He got here a little late on me at noon there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's RS 3017. It deals with removing mandatory jail time for an habitual violator convicted of driving while each person's driver's license was canceled, suspended, or revoked. We had some discussion about that happening in Sedgwick County and the disagreement between the sheriff's office and the city of Wichita.
Are there questions? Is there objection? Seeing no objection, the bill is introduced. That committee, we are adjourned.